Morning, LinkedIn and YouTube. That forgot we're always on YouTube
How
too.
about me? Good morning, Jake.
Oh yeah, you too. I just so hey, guess what I learned this morning? So I have a marketing contractor who's a great guy, and he's in Ireland. And we were trying to figure out, are we, that standard, like how often do you want to meet thing? And he said, let's meet every fortnight. And I was like, oh, is that you want to meet in the shooter game that the boys are playing? And no, I know what a fortnight is as an English major, but it's kind of funny, right?
Mhm.
And then I learned a new word. If you're meeting every fortnight, you're meeting fortnightly.
Fortnightly.
I have never heard that word. Have you heard that word?
Forthrightly, yes, I have.
I'm sorry, I have never heard that word. So Shakespeare did not use that word. But anyway, good to know it's out there. All right. Well, people, I don't think they came here to hear about Fortnite, but the other thing we were talking about is the vaccines.
Mhm.
Are you vaxxed, sir?
I got
Vaxxed.
vaxxed. I got stabbed last week,
Mm-hmm.
and I will say my arm was sore for 3 days,
You
which
got you got you got vaxxed in your vulnerability.
I did. I got vaxxed, and they exploited my vulnerable arm. Yeah. If you think about it, it makes sense, right? You're being injected with something that's been cooled to below zero, getting into you, right? But otherwise, no effect. I do not anticipate being that lucky with stabbing number two. I've heard lots of people say, yeah, I was for 24 hours, I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's okay because that means antibodies are doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why your body heats up and it's got to purge that stuff and it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure. And it's time that we all get vaxxed so that we can move forward with our lives here.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, one of the things that I think it's so important is I was actually just talking to somebody in the public sector, and they were like, "Yeah, we're excited because the city of Seattle is now taking appointments for everybody 16 and over,
Hmm.
and so they're sending all their folks and." Yeah. Hey, and by the way, speaking of them, one of the things that that the way I met them is through our security awareness training.
Oh,
And we don't have one this week, but we do have one next week. And I'll put that in
are
the
you
chat
sure?
here.
I thought we had one
Um,
this week.
no, it's next week. I just checked with Jenny.
Okay.
Um, and I think one of the important things there is it's free. Anyone can come. We've had cities, we've had counties, we've had hospitals, we've had manufacturing companies, we've had law
Rabbis is
firms,
the best story.
we've had rabbis.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good story actually. Anyway, and speaking of public sector, we're going to be doing a webinar specifically on how to budget for cybersecurity.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm going to do that with John Traeger from the city of Issaquah. And I personally am really looking forward to that. John's a great guy. He's got a lot of experience in exactly that, getting your security funded in the public sector and local government.
Yeah, I haven't talked to John much, but his email back about what we're going to talk about. You're going to love him
Yeah,
when you all see him. He's great.
he is a great guy.
So on to the news. What are the big stories, Mike?
So the big stories this week, let's see, a few products have gone vulnerable, strangely enough, and are being exploited, strangely enough. And there may be the potential for another SolarWinds-like episode. First up is Fortinet products. And this one isn't the worst thing in the world because the vulnerabilities are so old that everyone should be patched by now. But it's under active exploit. So if you haven't applied patches from 2019 and 2020, the perps are going to take over your firewall. Look for activity on ports 4443, 8443, and 10443. And I will say that we have seen the scanning activity looking for these open ports. So this is the real deal. It's under active exploit.
Well, that's not good. Losing control of your firewall sounds bad, Mike.
That's
But
bad.
I mean, but that's not as bad as what happened with SolarWinds, right?
No. There's another one. QNAP storage devices. Can best be described as a self-inflicted wound by the company because they were notified responsibly about a vulnerability in the product and seemingly ignored it for something like 4 months. So, now it's under active exploit. Vulnerability was made public just like it's supposed to be. So somewhat like the Accellion problem, right? The vulnerability was communicated and weaponized before the company got the patches out, and mayhem ensued. So, and just as an aside, Accellion has now been implicated in 3 universities having lots of records stolen: Stanford University, University of Maryland, Baltimore, and University of California at Berkeley, which, if you're a Pac-12 fan, is some amazing equal opportunity hacking. Cal and Stanford. That's awesome.
I have to tell you a terrible thing. So I grew up in DC and then went to high school right outside DC, and University of Maryland Baltimore campus. There are sort of 2 big University of Maryland campuses. One is Baltimore campus and one is College Park. Anyway, the initials for University of Maryland Baltimore campus is UMBC.
Mm-hmm.
And the ongoing joke in high school was UMBC stood for "You Made a Bad Choice," which is not true, but it was pretty funny.
You should hear what they do with the letters USC. We won't.
What?
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never heard. Anyway,
I'll tell you later.
All right. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Mike. So back to SolarWinds and back to all of this. I also heard something happen at SAP, right? I read the blast.
Well, and this is the big one. This is the one that has a potential of like being a SolarWinds problem. So SAP is used for enterprise resource planning, business analytics, all that stuff, right? It's used by a lot of companies and a lot of government. SAP is under active attack right now, and there are 6 known bugs in the platform that are being leveraged. So these perps are apparently, it's being reported, advanced actors based on how quickly they were able to develop these exploits. So this is the one that has the potential to rise because of the breadth of use and importance of this product to the operational continuity of corporations, government, everybody. So, SAP users, get patching and monitor your networks for the signs of the doorknob twisting, because it's going on right now.
It sure is, and that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other ERP system that was compromised last year? Munis. It was Tyler Technologies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I've heard, like yesterday, are some local governments are dumping that product, I understand. And, we're trying to steer them into SAP as a replacement. No, just
funny.
kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I mean, yeah. Didn't I hear about a couple of big privacy breaches, Mike?
Yeah.
There's.
I know the hits just keep on coming this way. This has been a busy week. So Facebook and LinkedIn. So Facebook lost 500 and something million records on their users sometime back, and now it's all been put online. It includes personal data, location data, phone numbers, etc. And this is somewhat humorous. Facebook says it's from a vulnerability that was identified and fixed in 2019. So this is all old news, old data. So tell me, Jake, how often do you change your mobile phone number?
Well, I have several, but I've had them for a long time. I mean, is your point that even if it's old data, it's just as relevant as the day it was lifted?
And now it's all
public? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the point. So nice try, Facebook. Let the targeting begin. And speaking of which, now there's 500 million, that's with a B, LinkedIn records for sale online. And it's not clear if these were stolen recently or if it's data aggregated from a number of other breaches and records in the wild, but it's plenty useful for setting up business email compromise, other kinds of fraud, and I would be worried too about all of this personal data collection going on right now, right before the government is about to do another round of, we're going to send checks to everybody, because you remember all the unemployment insurance impersonation fraud that went on. I kind of think that's what's lining up with all of these records all of a sudden out there in a wild and getting bought. But I'm not saying that activity is going to tick up right now, because we're already redlining. I don't know how it could tick up any further, but all those records out there are being bought. The buyers aren't collecting information to send birthday cards or congratulate you on your 5th work anniversary.
Yeah, the congratulate your coworker attack. That's one we talk about all the time. Hey, serious question though: do people need to be changing their LinkedIn passwords if they haven't changed them in a while? Is that
I
part? Is
don't.
that part of what was taken? Do we know?
I don't think passwords were disclosed. I think it's more data about people, right?
Okay.
Who you work with, how long you've worked there, what's your role in the company, things like that, right? The data that you would mine in order to craft bait that was believable.
Well, I suppose if your password is PA55 word, you should change it anyway, especially if
Yeah.
you've had it since the first time somebody came up with
I wonder how
PA55
many
word.
LinkedIn users use a password of LinkedIn. I bet that's, yeah. And I don't,
Uh,
just so you know.
that is a knowable thing.
Mhm.
Uh, so, now that we've discussed data being made available for miscreants,
Mhm.
is anyone making any progress to get, to get the bad guys?
Well, government keeps trying, but it's going to be a long road to change. The Biden administration has got this big infrastructure plan, right? But it's noticeably light on security funding for all of the IoT gizmos that are going to have to monitor and manage all that modernized infrastructure. And that gap has got a bunch of people worried. On the other hand, DHS Secretary Mayorkas laid out a 60-day plan to address ransomware, which is to your point, right? How are we going to, stop this stuff and put people in jail and make examples that make everybody pay attention? Industrial control system security for like water and power, protecting data that helps transportation pipeline systems, things like that, because those are vulnerable. And by the way, did you know that the pipelines are part of the transportation sector, which is why those two are grouped together? Which means that the federal agency that adjudicates cybersecurity in pipelines is the TSA. So, what else?
It is?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, I
Okay.
don't make this up. Well, some stuff I do make up. That wasn't it. Election security, uh, international partnerships that we need to create some norms, et cetera, et cetera, and notably finding ways to fill cyber positions in the federal government. So that's pretty ambitious, and I'm interested to see where all that lands in 60 days. It's not going to be a done deal in 60 days. This is a planning exercise, but that's the right direction. Does that ultimately end up in bad people in other countries going to jail? That's TBD, because remember, DHS looks internal.
Well, so speaking of internal, let's switch international. How's that for a terrible transition?
Nice segue. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible, really. But I mean, we always talk international because as we've talked about, what happens international comes to our shores pretty quickly
Hmm.
in the cyber world. And I've saw all the stuff about China and India and what's going on there.
Well, they're cybering each other. There's been a number of stories on China going after infrastructure in India and running influence operations. And India keeps talking about this. It's in the press a lot in India and keeps building capacity to counter it. So the word cyber war is coming up a lot in articles regarding China and India. Um, Meanwhile, this is really interesting. Russia has throttled Twitter, ostensibly because Twitter isn't removing content the Kremlin doesn't like fast enough. But it's interesting from the perspective of what we've talked about here. If we were serious about stopping criminal gangs running unimpeded from Russia, we should block their legitimate business traffic and let the oligarchs go stand on Putin's desk. Russia just showed the US how to use market forces to affect change. I don't condone what they did, but I hope the U.S. is looking at the example just provided by our comrades. And there's one more, just heads up, North Koreans are targeting security researchers again. So be careful who you believe on the internet, Jake. They'll try to suck you into a research project, and so if they approach you and say, hey, want to do some research, tell them no.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think I forgot to tell you, we got a puppy.
You did.
And so if I send you pictures of a puppy, they're real.
Okay.
And I'm not just fishing.
And now it will be expected. So
Right. And now it'll be expected. And we might actually have to throw them into our security awareness training, right?
maybe don't have Jeremy weaponize the image before you send it. Don't do that.
So at the end of all of these, we do a kicker. That story at the end of newscast where, puts a smile on your face. You always fail at that, but hey, try.
It's, I mean, what am I going to dig out of the week of cyber news? It's all death, destruction, companies falling over. I think so, all this. So this is a good one. All this talk about backdoor access to phones seems to have been lost on the Belgian authorities. They decrypted 500 million text messages sent by Sky ECC, which is an encrypted phone company that's now shut down. And these phones and this network was really popular with drug traffickers. And this all happened in early March, right? They used the messages that they decrypted to arrest 48 people in Belgium, 73 in the Netherlands, and they grabbed, get this, 27 tons of cocaine. They didn't need backdoors to do that.
27 tons?
27 tons, yeah. And it's interesting. I forget what the dollar value they put on that, but when I saw it, I thought, wow, man, cocaine's cheap now. Because it didn't seem like it was that much money for 27 tons. It was, a few $1 million.
I'm pondering that you read that story and the first thing you thought was cocaine is cheap now.
Well, I heard it used to be really expensive. A long time ago.
I don't know what to make of that. I'm gonna we could call that heartwarming or brain warming or wallet warming or
27 tons of drugs just got kept off the streets, man.
That's good. That's okay. Good. Yes, that's good.
I'll warm your heart.
As much as a puppy?
No.
All right. Well, I'd tell everybody we're going to see him again fortnightly, but we'll actually be here next week. So, stay safe, everybody. Don't click on the link. Although if you get a picture of a puppy from me, it's real. All right.
All right.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.